So what do I mean by the fact that these two movies have the same feeling or experience? I mean just that you feel the same way watching one versus the other. And it's a very strange thing to think of Frozen 2 and The Rise of Skywalker that way. But in many aspects, they are the same movie. They're both the culmination of something that came before it. For The Rise of Skywalker, that's the sequel trilogy, and for Frozen 2, it's Frozen. And you kind of go into them with the same feeling. You're thinking, okay, which characters are they going to focus more on? What conclusions are they going to arrive at? What is going to be the climax? What is going to become the pinnacle of the story that they're telling? What sort of things will they have built up on that they started off in previous movies? So you go into both movies thinking that right from the start. And then the movies begin, and right away they're trying to change things up or even retcon things, or basically kind of make you think that things are happening when they weren't really established well in previous movies or properties. I'm including like Frozen Fever and Olaf's Frozen Adventure in this, and I know that's a whole thing, but whatever. For Frozen 2, it's the fact that Elsa is unhappy with where she is, which is a very weird thing. She seems very happy to be in Arendelle and with her sister Anna. And in The Rise of Skywalker, it's kind of the relationship between Poe, Finn, and Rey, and like them having gone on these adventures and whatnot. And you're kind of like, that doesn't seem like really well established. It kind of seems like they're just throwing it in there, but you kind of give it, because it's the beginning of the movie, you're kind of like, okay, this is what they want us to believe, so let's see where they're going to go with that, because it's obviously going to play into what happens later on in the movie. So you go on, and you're watching the movie, and things are happening, and you're thinking, that's a good thing, that's a good thing. Not really sure how I feel about that, but I'm going to wait, because by the end of this movie, I'm sure that everything is going to fall into place, and everything will have been there for a reason, and I'm going to feel good about this because I was excited for this movie. I was maybe even a little hyped for this movie because the trailers looked good. The trailers made it seem like it was going to be something that I would enjoy, and I already enjoy this property on its own. I already like Star Wars. I already like Disney movies. I know that I should like this movie. So the movie goes on, and it goes on and on and on, and you reach a point where you're like, I'm not really sure if I'm enjoying this all the way. And like I said, you think it's okay if you don't enjoy it all the way, because once again, you're going to wait for it to come to the end, and by the end, you will have your opinion of it, and you're pretty optimistic, even like halfway through the movie. But then like there comes a point where either certain things are building up, like in the case of Frozen, or there's just like one scene in The Rise of Skywalker's situation where you're just like, oh, they think we're idiots. And you realize that, oh, this is going to be a bad movie, or this has been a bad movie, and I'm just the one who has been, tricked into thinking it's going to be good. And I would say for Frozen 2, it's more of kind of a slow lead up to that, whereas in Rise of Skywalker, like I said, it's just one moment where everything has just sort of piled on, and is just like the straw that broke the camel's back. And maybe I'll talk about that in a future video. But they also have, at the end, both Frozen 2 and The Rise of Skywalker, they have that moment at the end where you're like, oh, this is such a good moment, and I love this. And now I think the movie might actually be good. And for Frozen 2, it has that moment at the end where everybody seems happy, and so you think, oh, this is a happy ending. This is good for everybody. And so now I feel happy. And then like you go home and you think about it a little bit, and you're like, no, that isn't a happy ending. Because even though you establish that Elsa is unhappy in Arendelle, I still can't believe that she is. So at the end, when she's separated from everybody, yeah, she sends them letters, and yeah, they hang out from time to time, but it still doesn't feel like a happy ending for her. And especially for Anna, who this whole time has been trying to be with her sister. So them being split off, as well as other things in that movie, just doesn't feel right to me. That ending doesn't feel right. And then The Rise of Skywalker, at the end, everybody is celebrating, and that ending hug with Finn, Rey, and Poe, where they're all just embracing each other and they're crying, and it's so emotional, and I can really feel it. And that moment has me thinking, wow, this is a really good moment. I think this is a really good movie. And then, like, literally minutes after, you leave the theater and you're like, no, not really. And I realized that very quickly, because for The Force Awakens, I liked that movie. For The Last Jedi, I had some mixed feelings at first, but I did end up liking it in the end, or at least I was saving most of my opinion for when The Rise of Skywalker came out, because my thinking at the time was that it's just the second movie in a trilogy, and I haven't seen the third one yet, so let me sort of reserve myself until I see that and I can judge the thing as a whole. But now that I have seen The Rise of Skywalker, I can safely say that I would rewatch The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but I would only rewatch parts of The Rise of Skywalker because that movie is so stupid and insulting to anyone's intelligence. And that is just why it is the same as Frozen 2. Frozen 2 has very good parts in it, and also some very bad parts in it. And at the end of the day, I don't really think I would choose to rewatch Frozen 2 again. I would rewatch parts of it, and those parts of it that are really good are so good that they trick you into thinking that it is a good movie. But it's not. Neither of these are good movies. And it's really, really disappointing for that to be a fact when it seems like they had everything, working in their favor. Frozen was one of the biggest movies in the world. You would think that when it comes to the sequel, people would put in time and effort to make it work. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen. I know that Frozen has reportedly had some troubling, production, so I can't entirely blame it, but at the same time, how do you have troubling production for the sequel of one of your biggest movies? I just don't understand it. And the same goes for The Rise of Skywalker. I know a lot of the things that have been reported and have been going on in the background. I don't know every single thing, but I know enough to know that the people up top did not have this movie, this trilogy's best interests at heart. And that's really saddening when you think about how do you have like this trophy of a franchise, talking about both Frozen 2 and Star Wars. How do you have this trophy of a franchise and you don't give your all to make it the best thing that it can be? I understand that, the end game, the goal for any time anything is put out in Hollywood is to make money. But at the same time, I feel like once you get to a certain, price range, at some point you can realize, hey, we have the money to pretty much do whatever we want. And it's like, if you could do whatever you want, why would you not want to do something good? I don't understand why you would just put anything out there, and so you end up putting out garbage when you could actually put out some art. But I'm not an executive. I've never held even $1 million in my hands, so I don't know. I guess something just happens once you get up in that price range. Something happens to your mind that makes you think, well, money is the only important thing. Not the integrity of this project, not how our actors or our directors or our writers feel, not how the fans feel about that thing you're creating. It's all about the bottom line. So at the end of the day, I guess that we're just going to be sitting here at our homes, in our theaters, whatever, and they're just going to shove things at us. And at some point, I feel like you had to say that this is not what I paid for. And at some point, you had to say to yourself, I'm not going to contribute to the millions of dollars that they're making because this is crap. I'm not, saying go and pirate movies, but I mean,